What's up, guys? Zach here from the Front Porch Market here in Salem, and I'm going to go over a recipe I used to make some strawberry jam. I used local strawberries that I picked myself here in Saline County. I used, you need about 2.5 pounds of it. It comes out to 8 cups of strawberries before they're capped, or before they're crushed, about 5 cups after they're crushed. I needed 7 cups of sugar, which came out to about 3.5 to 4 pounds. Used a 4-pound bag and only had a little bit left. And then I used, what else? A package of Pectin, and that's all you need. Some pint jars, half-pint jars, whatever size jar you'd like. Yeah, let's get into it, and I'll show you how I made it.
I'm going to start with some jars that I previously sterilized, and the first step is going to be capping some strawberries. These strawberries are from Saltbox Farms here in Saline County. I picked them myself the day of this video, and I washed them in the colander before this just to get any dirt off. They actually don't spray their strawberries with pesticides, so they're good, fresh, clean strawberries. It's okay if they're not quite ripe. If there's a little bit of white, it's not going to matter in the jam as much as it would eating it by itself, because we are going to add sugar later in the recipe, so the sweetness won't be that important. And fresh strawberries will make the difference. You can tell the difference between grocery store strawberries and strawberries you pick yourself. So if you can, I recommend going to a pick it yourself farm, or if you have a farm stand like Front Porch Market around, that you can buy the fresh strawberries from. It does make a huge difference in the flavor. And I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest of this, and I will meet y'all when I have a pile. In this recipe, you are going to need about 8 cups of strawberries. I just used my Pyrex measuring thing to do 2 cups at a time, although it's not going to focus, but as you can see here, it's not quite 2 cups. I'd add a little bit more just to play it safe, but I just added those to a pot. And the next thing I did was get a potato masher and mash these up. I can't do it one-handed, so we're going to magically cut here in a second to after I've done it, but I got a potato masher and mashed them for probably a minute and a half. This is the consistency it came out in my case, but you can make this chunkier or less chunky, just depending on your taste. Mash it a little bit more if you want it smoother. You can leave it a little bit chunkier if you want, if you like the bigger chunks in your jam when you're done. Once the strawberries were mashed to my desired consistency, I added the pectin, and I did add the entire pouch. I dumped it all in and tried to make it look cool for the camera, but we see how that went. The autofocus was not on my side. And I just dumped it all in there, and I grabbed my whisk and I started to mix it up, and as you can see, it doesn't go well one-handed, but I just mixed it until it was thoroughly in there. After it was all mixed together, I took it to the stovetop where I had it set it on high heat, and I needed to get to a rolling boil, and that took a while. I cut through it so you didn't have to watch water boil, because a watch pot never boils. As it started to heat up and start to steam, I continued to mix it, and then I poured all 7 cups of sugar into it and continued to mix it, and this is what took the longest, because after the sugar is added in, you have to bring it back to a rolling boil. But once you get it to the rolling boil the second time, you only want to let it boil for exactly 1 minute. That's what the directions say. I don't know what happens if you go past it, but I wasn't going to test it and find out. So it says keep it at a rolling boil for exactly 1 minute, and then after that, we'll go on to the next step. This step is one that I actually did not do as well as I should have, but a layer of foam is going to appear on top of this mixture after you're done mixing it for the minute, and you have to take that off, and I just dumped it into a bowl I had to the side. If you don't get all the foam off at this point, it will come back later and it'll show up in your jars and it won't be as pretty. I'm not sure if it affects the taste, but I do know that it's not as pretty as if you are sure to get all of it out in this step. So take your time, get that layer of foam off. It's a much lighter pink. You'll be able to tell the difference once you get down to where the meat of the jam is, instead of the pink foam on top rather than the red foam or the red color of the jelly. So this next step is when things get fun. This is where you can really make a mess. Luckily I have this funnel for my mom because she's done canning in the past. I do definitely recommend it if you can find one or get one. It made life much easier. And we're just going to ladle the hot jam into these jars. The Department of Agriculture recommends a 1/4 inch of headspace for the jars for jellies and jams. So you want a 1/4 inch between the very top of the jar and the top of your jam. And in this case, that comes to just about even with the second layer of thread. And you can see on some of these, I did not line that up correctly. If you get too low of a head or too much headspace, so if you don't put enough jam in there, it leaves a lot of room for air, and germs and other things can be in that air, and so it doesn't really keep it safe like canning should do. If you have too little headspace, if you put too much jam in, luckily I didn't do it, but I've heard it makes a giant mess and it's not something fun. So don't recommend that. Just try to keep a 1/4 inch headspace for that. They make little tools you can use, or you can eyeball it. It shouldn't be too bad. So I recommend the funnel, and the headspace ruler that they make is nice, but not completely necessary. Just try to be consistent because it will help your jars seal later. After the jars were full, we're going to come over to this counter where we're going to wipe the mouth of the jar to make sure there's no debris. And then we did boil the lids to make sure that they were sterile. We have a magnet on a stick to get the top out. We're going to put it on, and then we're going to put the perimeter part around. I'm not going to tighten it too much because that can mess with the seal later. So just do it hand tight, don't force it. Now that all the lids are on, we're going to put it in the water. This water I did have set on high for probably 10 minutes before this. It's a lot of water. But we have a rack that goes in a big pot like this, and we're going to fill it up all the way around, fill it up with all the jars that can fit comfortably. If you have to do 2 rounds, it's not that big of a deal. Don't overcram your jars. Once all the jars were in, we went ahead and dropped the rack into the water. We set a timer for 10 minutes, and then we put the lid on, and the jars sit in there for 10 minutes, depending on your canner. For this one it was 10 minutes. And then we went and watched the show until the timer went off. After the timer, I took the lid off and I got my tongs. I started taking the jars out. I picked it up and I tilted it to get all the hot water that was sitting on top of the lid out. And I lined them up along this towel where they're going to have to sit for 24 hours to cool down. If you put them in the fridge too soon, it'll crack the glass. So find somewhere that you can set them to let them reach room temperature without any sudden changes. As the jars are cooling, you will hear them pop, and that means they create a seal that means that they are shelf stable. Here in a second you'll be able to hear it, but just kind of listen for it, and it should sound like this.
This cloudiness is because I did not get all the foam off because I'm a slacker. Hope you guys enjoyed that recipe and have some yummy jam to have on some toast tomorrow morning. If y'all shop with us at the market in Benton, be sure to follow, and I'll release more information on some of the products we do. I'm planning on doing milk and eggs, and then eventually some of the vendors we use. If you don't shop with us, go ahead and follow. I like to release a lot of general purpose knowledge as well, so you'll learn about the overarching ideas, not just our specific items we sell. Thank y'all for coming along today, and I will see y'all next time.